Well, I have two purposes today. Let me get on one. The first one is that on the 19th and 20th there were some postings that I did not get or that had come out later. The first one is both 1927 and 28 have basically the same stuff on them. The question then goes back to it talks about showtime and a bunch of stuff passing back and forth and a bunch of kill boxes and who instructed the DOJ to release certain select text messages. You know, you just almost have to say, what was it, the good guys or the bad guys, right? But they obviously picked just a few, and they only picked a few hundred out of tens of thousands. So the people that are involved in this are, let me get this lined out here. So you've got Bruce Orr, Christopher Steele, Bruce Orr, Nellie Orr, Christopher Steele, Nellie Orr, Bruce Orr. It was going back and forth and back and forth, and these guys were playing games, fine-tuning the whole process, trying to get something that would give them justification for doing a FISA warrant. And when did Rosenstein learn of the involvement of the two Orrs? And then the question goes, and it begs the question, why did Rosenstein, under congressional testimony, refuse to answer the question concerning reading it prior to execution? Well, it was obvious, because it was a self-supporting, self-producing document that that would not stand up at all to scrutiny. And then there is a showing that obviously he did sign it. You know, you can't say as an attorney, I'm sorry, you can't say as an attorney, well, I signed this, but I didn't read it. That is one where you get on cross-examination and you look like the biggest fool that ever walked the earth, right? That's total crap, and how anybody could even hold up and say that is a shame. Now, let me add to that. This FISA warrant is the most secretive, the most disciplined, the most fine-tuned, the allegedly most secure and verifiable warrant that can be obtained by the federal government. Why is that the case? Because it is secretive and is for all practical purposes, violates the fundamental constitutional rights of the person that is being watched, except if it meets all these criteria. I mean, we're stretching this, and it stretches the constitutional basis at its very best. So allegedly, nothing is necessarily true, but allegedly, when they set this FISA court up, they said, well, all right, if you're going to surreptitiously watch these guys, and you're not going to go before a public judge, and you're not going to have live witnesses, and you're going to do it on the basis of affidavits, we're going to require you to have these firewalls. We're going to require you to go through all of this scrutiny internally to the DOJ in order to meet the standards of the FISA warrant. So what Q is attempting to point out is, how do these firewalls fit up into the process, and in the process, who signed it? Well, the reason that there is a signature on it, and the reason that there are multiple signatures on it, and that the reason that there are at least 4 signatures in the process, is that each one of those serves as a firewall. Each one of those serves as that person saying, I have reviewed this, it is consistent with the narrow prescription of a FISA warrant, it meets all of the criteria of a FISA warrant, it has been double-checked and corroborated, it is, to my best knowledge, valid and represents our best intelligence. And you have to say that. And if you don't say that, it should not pass that firewall. That's the way it is. That's why it is as tightly scrutinized as it is. Most warrants require 1 signature and maybe some affidavits. This one requires 4. And it requires doubled up corroboration. So who signed the first one? Peter Strzok. Well, there's the guy that is duplicitous and has played games both with the Hillary investigation and with the Steele dossier, the so-called dossier. Who signed the next one? Andrew McCabe. This is the number 2 guy, right? That's right under the process. Who signed the next one? Well, we don't know who that is because they blocked that out. And finally, and was that Rosenstein? And finally, who signed the page 392? So this is the number 2 guy in the Department of Justice. This is the guy right under Loretta Lynch. This is the person that is responsible, the ultimate last firewall responsible to this process. And so you have Rosenstein who signs that, well, or Comey. So you've got Strzok, Rosenstein, McCabe, and Comey, probably all 4 of them in some fashion, and each of them is fully responsible in his or her, in this case his, all of them, own right, in his own position to lay this stuff out on the table and say, yeah, this meets all the standards. Well, we know it didn't meet all the standards. We know that it was internally corroborated. And then Q goes on to point out that, which is a critical fact. This is, in fact, a critical fact. And that is that Bruce Orr, who's internal to the process, and Nellie Orr, who is on the Fusion GPS bunch, that these guys are working back and forth, and they're doing it before the FISA warrant is issued, and they're doing it to try to make a FISA warrant stick. We're trying to make spaghetti that you throw against the wall and it actually sticks. I'm playing games, but that's the deal. And so the clear implication of this is, obviously, Rosenstein and these other guys that are on the firewalls, any of them that knew that this was being multiply played, used, manufactured, internally financed, and brought over from the DNC and the Hillary Clinton campaign, any of them that did that and signed that fundamentally violated their duties as a FISA informant to the FISA, the FISC court. So it is the nastiest of nasty business. And then they've got FISA 20, and you guys are going to tell me what that means. Somebody else knows, but that there may be, my guess is that there are 20 people involved in this, and I'm sure there are. So the second part of that one is, and I'm going to paraphrase it, but basically what it is that Hussein in the White House is in coordination with Hillary, and they're playing back and forth before the election of 2016, trying to come up with stuff that they can publicize and stick on Trump to make him lose. And Q points out this is projection, which is part of the definitional stuff we went through the other day. So we're going to try to stick Trump with Russian collusion when that's what we know we have been doing for years, and we've been funding the pocket of the Clinton Foundation and Hillary's campaign stuff and Bill's speech fees to play games and to do pay for play and to fundamentally violate the constitutional protections of our government and releasing stuff that should never have gone. So Q goes through the rest of this, the safeguards, the exposure, the operators, the actors, the agents of power, all of these people playing in the game. This is a strategic coordinated attacks designed to cover, shelter, provide criminal intent, and to win over the populace with this total BS that's just a smokescreen to get Hillary into office and then make it all disappear. And it is treason. It is sedition and treason. And so what Q goes on to point out is movies 1 to 3, full list, and calls it a trilogy up at the front, and calls the first movie The Start. So this is all the stuff that that is starting to ooze out of the process, and then says movie 2. coming this fall. So we still, I hope, we still are going to see this before the election day. And if it is the October surprise, it is perhaps sufficient to fundamentally change our election process in this midterm election. And the third movie, which makes me less comfortable, is when's the date of it to be announced. So enjoy the show. I won't enjoy it if it doesn't come soon enough to make this midterm work, because we really, truly, many of you have posted, I certainly have posted, I've been saying this since January, this stuff has to shake out before the election. And the only caveat that I would give to that is that if in fact people are elected, or just before the election, they are shown to have been treasonous and therefore are forced to resign, we actually have 20 or 30 or 50 or 100 vacancies in Congress that result from the fact that these guys are under indictment and they've been elected. And so that would throw crazy turmoil into the whole elective process. It may take 10% of the people, maybe 20% of the people out of Congress who have engaged in duplicitous activity. And of course, if this stuff of Start One, the movie of the trilogy, breaks before, in the mid-October, in the October surprise, then anybody that is closely aligned with the Hillary campaign is going to have to answer to the populace and to the electorate as to why they did it. So let me go to the next piece, because this is, I'm already used up a third of my time. And there is a nasty little comment by Anonymous saying Sessions is telling us, wink and nod, to go with the plan. And the farmer and I had a little disagreement today, and frankly we've had it all along, and it doesn't mean that we are disagreeable. It means that we agree to disagree. And his and many other people's comment are, we ought to string up Sessions and get rid of him. And that, on the face of it, I have those frustrations, and those frustrations hold for me as well. I watched the video, and it isn't like I'm so naive and Pollyanna-ish that one little 2-minute speech from a guy is going to change it. But I have held in the balance where Sessions fits in this, and I've also held in the balance this whole good guy, bad guy, who's playing off against, is this espionage, counter-espionage, it's spy versus spy. It's the classic Mad Magazine thing. Which guy's the black guy, which guy's the white guy, who's doing what, and is there a third party involved? So without making too much of the metaphor, here's the point. Sessions is either a half-witted, cartoonesque, silly character who is a bumbling idiot and doesn't know what he's doing, number one. Number two, he's a dark guy that's playing games, and he is actually has no upside purpose. Or number three, he is an honorable, respectable attorney who's actually trying to do the right job for the first time in decades. Let's toss aside. You've heard everybody talk about the other two, okay? The bumbling idiot one and the dark side one, that he's got alternate agendas, and he has interest in private corporations and private jails and everything, prisons and the rest of that. Let's use scenario number three, which is the only one, if you trust Trump at all, it's the only one that makes sense, okay? And that is that what he said actually is meaningful. And what he said is what we were trained as lawyers. No, not part of the bar, not sworn to the Queen of England, not doing special handshakes with the Masons. No, none of that. That as people who were sworn to represent the law actually meant what they said, actually went to law school for the purpose of providing justice and of upholding the Constitution and the law of this country, and that we were actually high-minded when we did so. And the stuff that we learned was this: the prosecutor is not there to win over the populace. It's not a popularity contest. It's not something where you issue media reports and the rest of that as you go along. It's not something where you say, well, we think so-and-so's guilty, but we're still looking. You don't do any of that. And you don't leak stuff. You actually work inside the process. You ferret out all of the problems that might be there. You look at the evidence from every different angle, and you're there to uphold justice. You're not there to convict anybody. You're not there to release anybody. You're not there to do political games. You're not there to target anybody. You're there to prosecute the issue of justice, of balance. And it doesn't matter how the chips fall, whether it ends up making you the most popular guy in the world or the least popular guy in the world. And what Sessions said today is, look, you guys all want to string me up, but, I'm paraphrasing, of course, you all want to string me up, but I am actually trying to do this the way it should have been done for decades, and you guys keep wanting me to do it the way Loretta Lynch and the rest of these guys, Holter and back into the little shrubby Bush campaign thing, and Clinton and the rest of them, where they all played games clear back to Nixon time, for that matter. I'm trying to do this in a professional sort of way, and if I take him at his word, then some of the other things that Q tells us, and I'm not doing this because Q tells me, I'm doing this because I'm looking at the big picture, right? There are 45,000 indictments. There is Huber that's been appointed that allegedly is working with Horowitz and the Inspector General and the 400 odd investigators. There is all this process working through, and it cannot be released, and probably cannot be released until they've got enough of the pieces to make it work. Are there people that are being brought in, are being interviewed, are being used as witnesses, are given witness protection, are given immunity or partial immunity? I mean, all of that is possible. Who flipped? We don't know. Are they subject to some kind of restraint or travel limitations? That's possible. Are they under witness protection? That's possible. Do we know any of that? No. But if any of that 45,000 indictments has any validity to it at all, then there is all of this going on. It has to be. All right, now let me play with another piece of this. And as far as I know, nobody has said this. There are, again, some intimations from Cuba. I didn't get it there. I actually thought of it myself. All right, I'm being silly. Look, there are some intimations that people are flipped and that people are actually not who they are thought to be. Bob Mueller is dirty, okay? He's a dark hat. He was in on 9/11. He was the FBI director a week before, as I remember it, a week before 9/11 happened. He was in on Uranium One. He's in on the Clinton stuff. He's dirty in other ways. There's no doubt about it. I mean, there are trails behind him, and in collusion with other players who are also dirty. So how could it possibly be that he is not? Well, if you had a black hat sitting across from you a few days after you were inaugurated, and ostensibly you were reviewing him to be the FBI director, but it would take months to undo the limitation that you've already exhausted of him being the FBI director for, what, 12 years? So you'd have to wait for his approval, when in fact a day or two later he's appointed special counsel. Either Trump's a total idiot, and he didn't know what he was doing, or there's a plan. And I still choose to think that he's not a total idiot, okay? Which leads me to the logical alternative, which is that the black hat sitting across from him is somebody that Trump said, hey, look, I've got you here. I've got you here. 9/11, Uranium One, a dozen other things, investigations while you were FBI director. I've got you linked in a whole bunch of other ways. You have flipped in and out of the public, and you've used this to your own advantage. You are either going to go down and spend several lifetimes in Gitmo, or you and I are going to work together. Now, Why would I think that might have any merit? Well, partially because he doesn't have any traction against Trump at all. He's been there 15 or 18 months and there's no traction at all against Trump. So does that tell me that maybe he and Trump are in cahoots? It gives me some thoughts about it. All right, let's take a look at who he's prosecuting, because everybody says, well, what about poor old Manafort, you know? And what about, what's the Papadopoulos and Carter Page? And what about his attorney, the Cohen, I guess it is? Well, if those guys were playing the game and were playing on the other side and were plants, which Manafort could easily have been by the CIA or the FBI, so could Carter Page, who had worked as a plant in other settings. Who knows about Papadopoulos? Then who are we punishing? Who are we prosecuting and who are we punishing, right? Are these Trump's insiders or are they Trump's enemies? Are they the traitors that were inside of his campaign that need to be prosecuted and who were working both sides of this thing, and therefore they ended up on the short end of the hook? Well, a reasonable interpretation of it, which nobody seems to come to, is that Mueller has been flipped from a black hat to a gray hat. How light or dark is it? Who cares? That's the metaphor, right? But the rest of these guys may be prosecuted as insiders, and they may actually be being used to clean up the system. This whole Manafort trial looks like a facade. I don't know what it is. I can't imagine representing him the way they did. I can't imagine having, 17 counts against him or whatever the heck it is, and then resting your case without presenting any evidence at all. Is he going to get pardoned? Is it going to get reversed? Is he going to testify against other people? You know, I don't know. I don't know. But it's not as simple as it looks. That's my point. It's not as simple as it looks, and there may be multiple interpretations. Might I be wrong? Oh, goodness sakes, might I be wrong? Yeah, well, of course I might be wrong. There's as good a possibility that I'm wrong as that I'm not. But the way I look at it, when I look at 18 months of Trump, how do I make sense of everything that's happened in any kind of logical, intelligent way? If I put myself on the other side, on the desk where Trump sits, and try to make sense of what Trump might have done, I can't do it the way everybody else is interpreting it, because to do so is to say he doesn't have a brain. So I'm trying to make him as smart as I am, right? All right. So finally, the last piece, and this is the piece that I proposed as Patriots. I had people making all kinds of input. I had some great ideas. I had some great thoughts about names and the rest of that, which frankly is of some concern. I have people that have given me phone numbers and emails and everything else, and what I've decided to do on the face of this, because obviously I can't do this, right? If you live in Vermont, I can't help you. We can help each other, but I can't help you. If you live in Alabama, I can't help you. We can help each other, but I can't help you. So what I propose to do for anybody that's willing to do it, either with emails or phone numbers or both, if you write me at Dr. Frog, DRPHROG, at Seething Frog, SEETHINGFROG.com, I will start to associate you with people in your state or your vicinity, okay? And that is by your consent. Secondly, the name business. I really liked Taking Our Country Back. I like that. But the acronym for it is TOCBA or TOCBA or something like that. I liked some of the other ones. There were the Gray Panthers, the Gray Wolves, can't remember, something like that. But it needs to be cryptic, it needs to be powerful, it needs to be unassailable. Let me give you a thought that I have, and maybe you'll come up with some other acronyms. I have one that I call Reclaiming Our Country, okay? How does that work? It's ROC. We rock, man. We rock. We'll throw rocks. We rock. and we would be rockers, okay? Now, I realize that fits into rock and roll and the rest of that, but it's time to have something that is powerfully simple, that that captures everybody, that is not Democrat or Republican, that's not Tea Party, that's not fundamental conservatives, that's not neoliberals or anything else, that runs across the board and people just say, I want my country back. We'll disagree, we'll agree to disagree after we get the country back, but until that time, we have a single purpose. And that single purpose is to take it back from the megalithic corporations, the big bank financiers, and the dark, degenerate creeps that are running our country, both administratively and congressionally. It's time. So that's my thought on that. Again, I am going to start linking you with people. If you're doing it, do it. If you're in Nevada, I'll link with you with other people in Nevada. And that's true all over the country. Theoretically, we'll end up with 50 different sub-organizations. We'll throw enough money together to come up with a website, and we'll put up a bulletin board. We'll have separate places for people to both make comments, to provide statements and interviews, and we'll also have announcements for different kinds of events. And I think, as I pointed out the other day, we will list events which, if they occur, will trigger us to go to action immediately. And doing the bank shakedown, having any kind of monetary shakedown, bingo, off we go. Any kind of electrical grid, off we go. Any kind of widespread censoring of us on it, bingo, off we go. Grocery, oil and gas, electrical grid, there must be several others. If they pull it on us, which it's a scam, if they pull it on us, we activate. We go after it. And there are other things that we go after before, and we activate and motivate people to vote this fall. The tendency is to lean toward the Republicans, but I'm sure there are conscientious, responsible, engaged Democrats as well. And on a state-by-state basis, the people that are there can make that judgment and can provide some input. Maybe they can't agree. Maybe they just stay out of it. But we really have to do this, and it's August, folks. September, October, November, we're less than 3 months away from the election. So that's my little report for the day. I hope it has been informative, engaging, proactive. Let's crank this up, huh? Thanks so much for watching, and if you like, give me a thumbs up.